All right, good morning, class. Today is Thursday, April 16th. It is Thursday, and we are going to be reading chapter 9 today. We are getting closer and closer to being about halfway through our book, and we are learning so much more about our characters each day. Yesterday was definitely one of the most exciting chapters where we found out that the father of Percy Jackson is Poseidon. He's the god of the sea. So it all made sense why every time he was around water, he got all of that energy. He was able to do better. He was healed in the water. A lot of the time, the water helped him overcome different situations with different people, like Clarice and Nancy Bobofit. So that was really exciting. So today we're going to get a little bit more into that. Today we're going to be looking at identifying the conflict in the chapter. So if you remember, conflict is the problem or what goes wrong in the story. In order to find it, you can ask yourself, what does the main character want? What is preventing the character from getting what they want? So why is it difficult for them to get what they want? There are 4 different types of conflict. One type is internal, character versus self. So that means they're having a problem with their self, maybe in their head, with their brain, making a decision, choosing right from wrong, those types of things. External, character versus character versus nature, and character versus society. So we had a character versus nature one earlier in the story when Percy and Grover and his mom were driving and their car got hit by lightning. That was a character versus nature. We learned a little bit that might have had a little bit to do with another character, maybe a god, something like that, but it was character versus nature. And then today we're going to be looking mostly at character versus self and character versus character. So as we get started, we're going to start with chapter 9. I will stop a little bit of the ways through to talk about our the first conflict in the story, and then we will move back to reading again with chapter 9. So, here we go. Chapter 9, I am offered a quest. The next morning, Chiron moved me to cabin 3. I didn't have to share with anybody. I had plenty of room for all my stuff. The Minotaur's horn, 1 set of spare clothes, and a toiletry bag. I got to sit on my own dinner table, pick all my own activities, call lights out whenever I felt like it, and not listen to anybody else. And I was absolutely miserable. Just when I started to feel accepted, to feel I had a home in cabin 11, I might be a normal kid, or as normal as you can be when you're a half-blood. I'd been separated, out, as if I had some rare disease. Nobody mentioned the hellhound, but I got the feeling that they were all talking about it behind my back. The attack had scared everybody. It sent 2 messages. 1, that I was the son of the sea god, and 2, monsters would stop at nothing to kill me. They could even invade camp that had always been considered safe. The other campers steered clear of me as much as possible. Camp 11 was too nervous to have sword class with me after what I'd done to Ares folk in the woods. So my lessons with Luke became one-on-one. He pushed me harder than ever, and I wasn't afraid to bruise me up in the process. You're going to need all the training you can get, he promised, as we were working with the swords and flaming torches. Now let's try that viper beheading strike again. 50 more repetitions. Annabeth still taught me Greek in the mornings, but she seemed distracted. Every time I said something, she scowled at me, as if I'd poked her with something in the eyes. After lessons, she would walk away muttering to herself, Quest, Poseidon, dirty rotten, got to make a plan. Even Clarice kept her distance, though her venomous looks made it clear that she wanted to kill me for breaking her magic spear. I wished that she would yell or punch me or something. I'd rather get into fights every day than be ignored. I knew somebody at camp resented me because one night I came into my cabin and found a mortal newspaper dropped inside the doorway. A copy of the New York Daily News, open to the Metro page. The article took me almost an hour to read because the angrier I got, the more words floated around on the page. Boy and mother still missing. Freak car accident by Eileen Smith. Sally Jackson and son Percy are still missing 1 week after their mysterious disappearance. The family's badly burned 78 Camaro was discovered last Saturday on a North Island road, the roof ripped off and the front axle broken. The car had flipped and skidded for several hundred feet before exploding. Mother and son had gone for a weekend vacation to Montauk, but left hastily under mysterious circumstances. Small traces of blood were found in the car and near the scene of the wreck, but there were no other signs of missing Jacksons. Residents in the rural area reported seeing nothing unusual at the time of the accident. Mrs. Jackson's husband, Gabe Ugliano, claims that his stepson, Percy Jackson, is a troubled child who had been kicked out of numerous boarding schools and has expressed violent tendencies in the past. Police would not say whether son Percy is a suspect in mother's disappearance, but they had not ruled out foul play. Below are recent pictures of Sally Jackson and Percy. Police urge anyone with information to call the toll-free Crime Stoppers hotline. The phone number was circled in a black marker. I wadded up the paper and threw it away, then flopped down in my bunk bed in the middle of the empty cabin. Lights out, I told myself miserably. So pause there. I want us to think about, how is Percy Jackson feeling? Remember, to identify character feelings, we want to look at their thoughts, their words, and their actions. So what word would you use to describe his feelings right now? I want you to think it in your head, and you can even say it out loud. So one thing that I noticed is that here he said that he was miserable, and I was absolutely miserable. He also said, I got the feeling they were all talking about me behind my back. He also said that Cabin 11 was nervous to have sword classes with me after what I'd done to the Aries folks. That Clarice was keeping her distance, and I knew somebody at camp resented me. So all of that leads me to believe he's feeling pretty lonely. He's probably unhappy because he's all by himself, and people are avoiding him at camp. I want to know who you think. I want you to be thinking and predicting about who do you think might be the person that's resenting him, who left that newspaper on his doorstep, and like, what are they trying to do? Why are they doing this to him? Let's keep going and see if we can figure anything else out. That night, I had my worst dream yet. I was running along the beach in the storm. This time, there was a city behind me, not New York. The sprawl was different. Buildings spread farther apart, palm trees and low hills in the distance. About 100 yards down the surf, two men were fighting. They looked like TV wrestlers, muscular with beards and long hair. They wore flowing Greek tunics, one trimmed in blue, the other in green. They grappled with each other, wrestled, kicked, and headbutted, and every time they connected, lightning flashed, then the sky grew darker and the wind rose. I had to stop them. I didn't know why, but the harder I ran, the more the wind blew me back, until I was running in place, my heels digging uselessly in the sand. Over the roar of the storm, I could hear the blue-robed one yelling at the green-robed one, "Give it back! Give it back!" like a kindergartner fighting over a toy. The waves got bigger, crashing into the beach, spraying me with salt. I yelled, "Stop it! Stop fighting!" The ground shook. Laughter came from somewhere under the earth, and a voice so deep and evil that it turned my blood. "Come down, little hero," the voice crooned. "Come down." The sand slipped beneath me, opening up a crevice straight down to the center of the earth. My feet slipped and the darkness swallowed me. I woke up. Sure, I was falling. I was still in bed, in cabin 3. My body told me it was morning, but the dark outside and the thunder rolled across the hills. A storm was brewing. I hadn't dreamed that. I heard a clomping sound at the door, a hoof knocking on the threshold. "Come in." Grover trotted inside, looked worried. "Mr. D wants to see you." "Why?" "He wants to kill. I'd better let him tell you." Nervously, I got dressed and followed, sure that I was in huge trouble. For days, I'd been expecting a summons to the big house. Now that I was declared son of Poseidon, one of the big 3 gods who weren't supposed to, let's go up here, who weren't supposed to have kids, I figured it was a crime for me just to be alive. The other gods had probably been debating the best way to punish me for existing, and now Mr. D was ready to deliver their verdict. Over Long Island Sound, the sky looked like ink soup coming to a boil. A hazy curtain of rain was coming in our direction. I asked Grover if I needed an umbrella. "No," he said. "It never rains here unless we want it to." I pointed to the storm. What the heck is that then? He glanced uneasily at the sky. It'll pass around us. Bad weather always does. I realized he was right. In the week I'd been here, it'd never been overcast. The rain clouds I'd seen had skirted right around the edges of the valley, but this storm, this one was huge. At the volleyball pit, the kids from Apollo's cabin were playing a morning game against the satyrs. Dionysus' twins were walking around the strawberry fields, making the plants grow. Everybody was going on their normal business, but they looked tense. They kept their eyes on the storm. Grover and I walked up to the front porch of the big house. Dionysus sat at the pinnacle table in his tiger striped Hawaiian shirt with his Diet Coke, just as he had on my first day. Chiron sat at the table in his fake wheelchair. They were playing against invisible opponents, two sets of cards hovering in the air. Well, well, Mr. D said without looking up, our little celebrity. I waited. Come closer, said Mr. D, and don't expect me to bow to you, mortal, just because your old barnacle beard is your father. A net of lightning flashed across the clouds. Thunder shook the windows of the house. Blah, 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 Dionysus said. Chiron feigned interest in his pinnacle cards. Grover cowered over by the railing, his hoofs clopping back and forth. If I had my way, Dionysus said, I would cause your molecules to erupt in flames. We'd sweep up the ashes and be done with you with a lot of the trouble. But Chiron seems to feel this would be against my mission at this cursed camp, to keep you little brats safe from harm. Spontaneous combustion is a form of harm, Mr. D, Chiron put in. Nonsense, Dionysus said. Boy wouldn't feel a thing. Nevertheless, I've agreed to restrain myself. I'm thinking of turning you into a dolphin instead, sending you back to your father. Mr. D, Chiron warned. Oh, all right, Dionysus relented. There's one more option, but it's a deadly and foolish. Dionysus rose, and the invisible player cards dropped to the table. I'm off to Olympus for an emergency meeting. If the boy is still here when I get back, I'll turn him into the Atlantic bottlenose. Do you understand? And Perseus Jackson, if you're at all smart, you'll see that's much more sensible choice than what Chiron feels you must do. Dionysus picked up the playing card, twisted it, and became a plastic rectangle. A credit card? No. A security pass? He snapped his fingers. The air seemed to fold and bend around him. He became a hologram, then a wind, and he was gone, leaving only the smell of fresh pressed grapes lingering behind. Chiron smiled at me, but he looked tired and strained. Sit, Percy, please. And Grover. We did. Chiron laid his cards on the table, a winning hand he hadn't gotten to use. Tell me, Percy, he said, what did you make of the Hellhound? Just hearing the name made me shudder. Chiron probably wanted me to say, heck, it was nothing. I eat hellhounds for breakfast, but I didn't feel like lying. It scared me, I said. If you hadn't shot it, I'd be dead. You'll meet worse, Percy, far worse, before you're done. Done with what? Your quest, of course. Will you accept it? I glanced at Grover, who was crossing his fingers. Sir, I said, you haven't told me what it is yet. Chiron grimaced. Well, that's the hard part, the details. Thunder rumbled across the valley, and the storm clouds had now reached the edge of the beach. As far as I could see, the sky and the sea were boiling together. Poseidon and Zeus, I said. They're fighting over something valuable, something that was stolen, aren't they? Chiron and Grover exchanged looks. Chiron sat forward in his wheelchair. How did you know that? My face felt hot. I wish I hadn't opened my mouth. Pause for a second. How does he know that? Because earlier in the story, I want you to think back to his dream. His dream helped him figure that out. If you remember, he was talking about how a man in green was fighting with a man in blue. They both had beards and all these different things. So he had that dream, and that dream helped him now because now he already knows. Let's keep going. My face was hot. I'll bring it up here. I wish I hadn't opened my big mouth. The weather since Christmas has been weird, like the sea and the sky are fighting. Then I talked to Annabeth, and she overheard something about a theft. And I've also been having these dreams. I knew it, Grover said. Shh, Satyr, Chiron ordered. But it is his quest. Grover's eyes were bright with excitement. It must be. Only the oracle can determine. Chiron stroked his bristly beard. Nevertheless, Percy, you are correct. Your father and Zeus are having their worst quarrel in centuries. They are fighting over something valuable that was stolen. To be precise, a lightning bolt. I laughed nervously. What? Do not take this lightly, Chiron warned. I'm not talking about some tinfoil covered zigzag you'd see in second grade play. I'm talking about a 2 foot long cylinder of a high grade celestial bronze capped on both ends with god level explosives. Oh, Zeus's master bolt, Chiron said, getting worked up now. The symbol of his power, from which all other lightning bolts are patterned. The first weapon made by the Cyclops for the war against the Titans. The bolt that sheared the top of Mount Aetna and hurled Kronos from his throne, the Master Bolt, which packs enough power to take mortal hydrogen bombs look like firecrackers. And it's missing. Stolen, Chiron said. By who? By whom? Chiron corrected. Once a teacher, always a teacher. By you. My mouth fell open. At least Chiron held up his hand. That was what Zeus was thinking. During the winter solstice, at the last council of the gods, Zeus and Poseidon had an argument. The usual nonsense. Mother Rhea always liked you best. Air disasters are more spectacular than sea disasters, etc. Afterwards, Zeus realized his master bolt was missing, taken from the throne room under his very nose. He immediately blamed Poseidon. Now, a god cannot usurp another god's symbol of power directly. That is forbidden by the most ancient of divine laws. But Zeus believes your father convinced a human hero to take it. But I didn't. Patience and listen, child, Chiron said. Zeus has good reason to be suspicious. He forges of the Cyclops are under the ocean, which gives Poseidon some influence over the makers of his brother's lightning. Zeus believes Poseidon has taken the Master Bolt and is now secretly having the Cyclops build an arsenal of illegal copies, which might be used to topple Zeus from his throne. The only thing Zeus wasn't sure about was which hero Poseidon used to steal the bolt. Now Poseidon has openly claimed you as his son. You were in New York over the winter holidays. You could easily have snuck into Olympus. Zeus believes he has found his thief. But I've never even been to Olympus. Zeus is crazy. Chiron and Grover glanced nervously at the sky. The clouds didn't seem to be parting around us, as Grover had promised. They were rolling straight over the valley, sealing us in like a coffin lid. Percy, Grover said, we don't use the C word to describe the Lord of the Sky. Perhaps paranoid, Chiron suggested. Then again, Poseidon has tried to unseat Zeus before. I believe that was question 38 on your final exam. He looked at me as if he actually expected me to remember question 38. How could anyone accuse me of stealing a god's weapon? I couldn't even steal a slice of pizza from Gabe's poker party without getting busted. Chiron was waiting for an answer. Something about a golden net, I guessed. Poseidon and Hera and a few other gods, they trapped Zeus and wouldn't let him out until he promised to be a better ruler, right? Correct, Chiron said, and Zeus has never trusted Poseidon since. Of course, Poseidon denies stealing the Master Bolt. He took great offense at the accusation. The two have been arguing back and forth for months, threatening war, and now you've come along, the proverbial last straw. But I'm just a kid. Percy, Grover cut in. If you were Zeus, and you already thought your brother was plotting to overthrow you, then your brother suddenly admitted he had broken the sacred oath he took after World War II, that he'd fathered a new mortal hero who might be used as a weapon against you. Wouldn't that put a twist in your toga? But I didn't do anything. Poseidon, my dad, he didn't really have this Master Bolt stolen, did he? Chiron sighed. Most thinking observers would agree that thievery is not Poseidon's style, but the sea god is too proud to try convincing Zeus of that. Zeus has demanded that Poseidon return the bolt by the summer solstice, that June 21st, 10 days from now. Poseidon wants an apology for being called a thief by the same date. I hoped the diplomacy might prevail, that Hera or Demeter or Hestia would make the two brothers see sense, but your arrival has inflamed Zeus's temper. Now neither god will back down, unless someone intervenes. unless the Master Bolt is found and returned to Zeus before the Solstice. There will be a war. And do you know what a full-fledged war would look like, Percy? Bad, I guess. Imagine the world in chaos, nature at war with itself, Olympians forced to choose sides between Zeus and Poseidon, destruction, carnage, millions dead, Western civilization turned into a battleground so big it would make the Trojan War look like a water balloon fight. Bad, I repeated. And you, Percy Jackson, would be the first to feel Zeus's wrath. It started to rain. Volleyball players stopped their game and stared in stunned silence at the sky. I had brought this storm to Half Blood Hill. Zeus was punishing the whole camp because of me. I was furious. So I have to find the stupid bolt, I said, and return it to Zeus. What better peace offering, Chiron said, than to have the son of Poseidon return Zeus's property? If Poseidon doesn't have it, where is the thing? I believe I know. Chiron's expression was grim. Part of a prophecy I had years ago. Well, some of the lines make sense to me now. But before I can say more, you must officially take up the quest. You must seek counsel of the oracle. Why can't you tell me where the bolt is beforehand? Because if I did, you would be too afraid to accept the challenge. I swallowed. Good reason. Then you agree. You agree then. I looked at Grover, who nodded encouragingly. Easy for him. I was the one who Zeus wanted to kill. All right, I said. It's better than being turned into a dolphin. Pause there. So, I want us to go back to this chart, or to our question. So our question for today is, what is the internal problem revealed in chapter 9? So again, internal is right here. It means character versus self. So it's the problem Percy's having with his self. Percy can't decide if she should leave camp or stay home, or leave camp to go home or stay. So we know he's not having a good time, but he never talks about leaving. It doesn't seem like that's a option for him. So I'm not going to use that one. So I'm actually going to cross it out. So I'll show you what I would do. If I wanted to cross this out, I would highlight it. And then, oh, now I don't see it. There's usually a way to strike through it. I don't know. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to highlight it and I'm going to make it turn black so that you can't see it. Percy can't decide if he wants to go on the quest or become a dolphin. So that actually sounds kind of crazy, but that is part of what they were saying. So he's trying to decide if he should go on the quest or if he should become a dolphin. If you look back here, some evidence to prove that, it says, all right, I said it's better than being turned into a dolphin. And if you remember all the way up here, after he went to go see Dionysus, Dionysus said the same thing. He says, nonsense. Nevertheless, I've agreed to restrain myself, thinking of turning to a dolphin instead of sending you back to your father. So that's part of it. And then again, he says it right here. If the boy is here when I get back, I'll turn him into an Atlantic bottlenose, which is a type of dolphin. So all of those different pieces of evidence prove that that is one of the options for him. Percy can't decide if he should still be friends with Grover. So in this part, he's not really talking about not being friends with Grover. So that's definitely not part of it. And then Percy can't decide what to eat for dinner. That's kind of a silly one. They don't even talk about that. So we know the answer right here is Percy can't decide if he wants to go on a quest or become a dolphin. So I'm going to highlight that yellow. If you wanted to underline it, you would just press this button. You keep this highlighted like this. So you keep it gone over. You press down, hold it, and then you can press underline right there or highlight. If you can't figure out how to do that, just go down here and write, oops, gotta take this off now. The answer is B. So now same with down here. We're going to go through part B. Ooh, I'm sorry. I don't want to show you the answer yet. Which detail best explains the internal conflict? So which text evidence proves this? All right, I said, it's better than being turned into a dolphin. Well, that's one of them. The other campers steered clear of me as much as possible. That doesn't have anything to do with him being turned into a dolphin or having to go on his quest. Grover trotted in looking worried. Mr. D wants to see you. Nope. Or I was going to have a hot dog or a hamburger, so I would get rid of all of those. You don't have to do this. What you can do, you just have to highlight the answer or underline it. And then again, if you cannot figure out how to do that, you would type down here, the answer is A. Now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put it all together. All I'm going to ask you to do is write out your reasoning. So for example, I just copied down the answer from part A and part B. In chapter 9, the internal problem that Percy is facing is that he's going on a quest, or he would rather let he has to decide if he's going to go on a quest or if he would let Mr. D turn him into a dolphin. In the text it says, all right, I said, it's better being turned into a dolphin. This proves that he does decide to go on the quest even though he knows it will be dangerous. He figures going on the quest is a better alternative than being turned into a dolphin forever. So this is my reasoning. So this is what I'm going to be asking you to do for the next one. You don't have to rewrite part A and B. You just need to give your reasoning. So it's like a CER. So if you look down here, you'll see the same thing. So you'll do this one, and then you'll write your reasoning so that you would have like a CER there. All right. So your next question is, what is the major conflict revealed in chapter 9? So as you're reading, I want you to keep thinking about that. So in the next conflict, so we've already talked about this conflict, so this is not your answer. Now we're going to be talking about what is the major conflict in this entire chapter. Who is it between? Your questions are here, or your answer choices are here. Zeus versus Poseidon, Poseidon versus Percy, Percy versus Chiron, Chiron versus Dionysus. So what is the major external conflict in this chapter? And then you're going to find your evidence. So let's keep reading and see what happens. So we stopped right here. All right, I said, it's better than being turned into a dolphin. Then it's time you consulted the oracle, Chiron said. Go upstairs, Percy Jackson, to the attic. When you come back down, assuming you're still sane, we will talk more. 4 flights up, the stairs ended under a green trapdoor. I pulled the cord. The door swung down, and the wooden ladder clattered into place. The warm air from the above smelled like mildew and rotten wood, and something else. A smell I remembered from biology class. Reptiles. The smell of snakes. I held my breath and climbed. The attic was filled with Greek hero junk, and armor stands covered in cobwebs, once bright shields pitted with rust, old leather steamer trunks plastered with stickers saying Ithaca, Circles Island, and Land of the Amazons. One of the tables was stacked with glass jars filled with pickled things, severed hairy claws, huge yellow eyes, various other parts of monsters. A dusty mounted trophy on the wall looked like a giant snake's head, but with horns and a full set of shark's teeth. The plaque read, Hydra Head, Number 1, Woodstock, New York, 1969. By the window, sitting on the wooden tripod stool, was the most gruesome memento of all, a mummy. Not the wrapped in cloth kind, but the human female body shriveled to a husk. She wore a tie-dyed sundress, lots of beaded necklaces, and a headband over her long black hair. The skin of her face was thin and leathery over her skull, and her eyes were glassy white slits, as if the real eyes had been replaced by marbles. She'd been dead a long, long time. Looking at her sent chills up my back, and that was before she sat up on her stool and opened her mouth. A green mist poured from the mummy's mouth, coiling over the floor in thick tendrils, hissing like 20,000 snakes. I stumbled over her myself, trying to get to the trap door, but it slammed shut. Inside my head, I heard a voice slithering into one ear and coiling around my brain. I am the spirit of Delphi, speaker of the prophecies of Phoebus Apollo, slayer of the mighty Python. Approach, seeker, and ask. I wanted to say, no thanks, wrong door, just looking for the bathroom, but I forced myself to take a deep breath. The mummy wasn't alive. She was some kind of gruesome receptacle for something else, the power that was now swirling around me in the green mist. But its presence didn't feel evil, like my demonic math teacher, Mrs. Dodds, or the Minotaur. It felt more like the 3 fates I'd seen knitting yarn outside the highway fruit stand. Ancient, powerful, definitely not human, but not particularly interested in killing me either. I got up the courage to ask, What's my destiny? The mist swirled more thickly, collecting right in front of me, around the table with the pickled monster part jars. Suddenly, there were four men sitting around the table playing cards. Their faces became clearer. It was Smelly Gabe and his buddies. My fists clenched. Though I knew this poker party couldn't be real, it was an illusion made out of mist. Gabe turned toward me and spoke in a raspy voice of the oracle. You shall go west and face the god who has turned. His buddy on the right looked up and said this in the same voice, You shall find what was stolen and see it safely returned. The guy on the left threw in two poker chips and said, You shall be betrayed by one who calls you a friend. Finally, Eddie, our old building super, delivered the worst line of all, and you shall fail to save what matters most in the end. The figures began to dissolve. At first, I was too stunned to say anything, but as the mist retreated, coiling into huge green serpent and slithering back into the mouth of the mummy, I cried, Wait, what do you mean? What friend? What will I fail to save? The tail of the mist snake disappeared into the mummy's mouth. She reclined back against the wall, her mouth closed tight, as if it had been open in 100 years. The attic was silent again, abandoned, nothing but a room full of mementos. I got the feeling that I could stand here until the cobwebs, too, and I wouldn't learn anything else. My audience with the oracle was over. Well, Chiron asked me. I slumped into the chair at the pinnacle table. She said I would retrieve what was stolen. Grover sat forward, chewing excitedly on the remains of his Diet Coke can. That's great! What did the oracle say exactly? Chiron pressed. This is important. My ears were still tingling from the reptilian voice. She said that I would go west and face a god who had turned. I would retrieve what was stolen and see it safely returned. I knew it, Grover said. Chiron didn't look satisfied. Anything else? I didn't want to tell him. What friend would betray me? I didn't have that many. And the last line, I would fail to save what mattered most. What kind of oracle would send me on a quest and tell me, oh, by the way, you'll fail? How could I confess that? No, I said, that's about it. He studied my face. Very well, Percy, but know this. The oracle's words often have double meanings. Don't dwell on them too much. The truth is not always clear until events come to pass. I got the feeling he knew I was holding back something bad, and he was trying to make me feel better. Okay, I said, anxious to change topics. So, where do I go? What's this god in the west? Percy, Chiron said. If Zeus and Poseidon weaken each other in the war, who stands to gain? Somebody else who wants to take over, I guessed. Yes, quite. Someone who harbors a grudge, who has been unhappy with his lot since the world was divided eons ago, whose kingdom would grow powerful with the deaths of millions. Someone who hates his brothers for forcing him into an oath to have no more children, an oath that both of them have now broken. I thought about my dreams, the evil voice that had spoken from under the ground. Hades. Chiron nodded. The Lord of the Dead is the only possibility. A scrap of aluminum dribbled out of Grover's mouth. Whoa, wait, what? A Fury came after Percy, Chiron reminded him. She watched the young man until she was sure of his identity. Then she tried to kill him. Furies obey only one lord, Hades. Yes, but Hades hates all heroes, Grover protested, especially if he has found out Percy is the son of Poseidon. A hellhound got into the forest, Chiron continued. Those can only be summoned from the fields of punishment, and it had to be summoned by someone within the camp. Hades must have a spy here. He must suspect Poseidon will try to use Percy to clear his name. Hades would very much like to kill this young half-blood before he can take on the quest. Great, I muttered. The two major gods who want to kill me. But a quest to... Graver swallowed. I mean, couldn't the Master Bolt be someplace like Maine? Maine's very nice this time of year. Hades sent a minion to steal the Master Bolt, Chiron insisted. He hid it in the underworld, knowing full and well that Zeus would blame Poseidon. I don't pretend to understand the Lord of the Dead's motives perfectly, or why he chose this time to start a war, but one thing is certain. Percy must go to the underworld, find the Master Bolt, and reveal the truth. So, Percy is taking on this quest. They think that the Master Bolt is in Hades now, or with Hades in the underworld. So that means his quest is he's going to have to go there. So we can already imagine that this is going to be a very dangerous quest. I want to know, who do you think is going to go with him? I also want you to still be thinking about, who is this person? They said somebody inside the camp must have let the hellhound in. We also know somebody also put the newspaper on his door about his mom and him disappearing. So someone in the camp is not his friend. And he just heard in the oracle that someone who is his friend is going to betray him. So I want you to continue to be thinking about who his friend is, trying to look for clues, foreshadowing, that might show who he is. All right, let's keep going. A strange fire burned in my stomach. The weirdest thing was, it wasn't fear, it was anticipation, the desire for revenge. Hades had tried to kill me 3 times so far, with the Fury, the Minotaur, and the Hellhound. It was his fault my mother had disappeared in a flash of light. Now he was trying to frame me and my dad for a theft we hadn't committed. I was ready to take him on. Besides, if my mother was in the underworld, whoa, boy, said the small part in my brain that was still saying, "You're a kid. Hades is a god." Grover was trembling. He'd started eating pinnacle cards like potato chips. The poor guy needed to complete a quest with me so that he could get his searcher's license, whatever that was. But how could I ask him to do this quest, especially when the oracle said I was destined to fail? This was suicide. Look, if we know it's Hades, I told Chiron, why can't we just tell the other gods, Zeus and Poseidon, could go down to the underworld and bust some heads? Suspecting and knowing are not the same, Chiron said. Besides, even if the other gods suspect Hades, and I imagine Poseidon does, they couldn't retrieve the bolt themselves. Gods cannot cross each other's territories except by invitation. That is another ancient rule. Heroes, on the other hand, have certain privileges. They can go anywhere, challenge anyone, as long as they are bold enough and strong enough to do it. No god can be held responsible for the hero's actions. Why do you think the gods always operate through humans? You're saying I'm being used. I'm saying it's no accident Poseidon has claimed you now. It's a very risky gamble, but he's in a desperate situation. He needs me. My dad needs me. Emotions rolled around inside me like bits of glass in a kaleidoscope. I didn't know whether to feel resentful or grateful or happy or angry. Poseidon had ignored me for 12 years. Now suddenly he needed me? I looked at Chiron. You've known I was Poseidon's son all along, haven't you? I had my suspicions, as I said. I've spoken to the oracle too. I got the feeling there was a lot he wasn't telling me about his prophecy, but I decided I couldn't worry about that right now. After all, I was holding back information too. So let me get this straight, I said. I'm supposed to go to the underworld and confront the Lord of the Dead. Check, Chiron said. Find the most powerful weapon in the universe. Check. And get it back to Olympus before the summer solstice, in 10 days. That's about right. I looked at Grover, who gulped down the aces of heart. Did I mention that Maine is very nice this time of year? He asked weakly. You don't have to go, I told him. I can't ask that of you. Oh, he shifted in his hooves. No, it's just that satyrs and underground places, well... He took a deep breath, and then he stood, brushing his shredded cards into an aluminum bits off his t-shirt. You saved my life, Percy. If you're serious about wanting me along, I won't let you down. I felt so relieved. I wanted to cry, though I didn't think that would be very heroic. Grover was the only friend I'd had for longer than a few months. I wasn't sure what good a satyr could do against the forces of the dead, but I felt better knowing that he'd be with me. All the way, G-Man. I turned to Chiron. So, where do we go? The oracle just said, go west. The entrance to the underworld is always in the west. It moves from age to age, just like Olympus. Right now, of course, it's in America. Where? Chiron looked surprised. I thought that would be obvious enough. The entrance to the underworld is in Los Angeles. Oh, I said. Naturally. So we just get on a plane. No, Griever shrieked. Percy, what are you thinking? Have you ever been on a plane in your life? I shook my head, feeling embarrassed. My mom had never taken me anywhere on biplane. She'd always said that we didn't have the money. Besides, her parents had died in a plane crash. Percy, think, Chiron said. You are the son of the sea god. Your father's bitterest rival is Zeus, lord of the sky. Your mother knew better than to trust you in an airplane. You would be in Zeus's domain. You would never come down alive. Overhead, lightning crackled. Thunder boomed. Okay, I said, determined not to look at the storm. So I'll travel over land. That's right, Chiron said. 2 companions may accompany you. Grover is one. The other has already volunteered. If you will accept her help. Gee, I said, feigning surprise. Who else would be stupid enough to volunteer for a quest like this? The air shimmered behind Chiron. Annabeth became visible, stuffing her Yankees cap into her back pocket. I've been waiting a long time for a quest, Seaweed Brain, she said. Athena is no fan of Poseidon, but if you're going to save the world, I'm the best person to keep you from messing up. If you do say so yourself, I said. I suppose you have a plan, wise girl. Her cheeks colored. Do you want my help or not? The truth was, I did. I needed all the help I could get. A trio, I said. That'll work. Excellent, Chiron said. The afternoon, we can take you as far as the bus terminal in Manhattan. After that, you are on your own. Lightning flashed. Rain poured down on the meadows that were never supposed to have violent weather. No time to waste, Chiron said. I think you should all get packing. All right, we're going to pause there. That is the end of chapter 9. So now they are heading on their quest. I want you to think about the entire chapter from beginning to end. Think about what the quest is for, and I want you to think about what is the major external problem in this chapter, which detail best explains the external conflict, and then I want you to write your reasoning. So, for your reasoning, make sure to include how does the conflict impact Percy? So I want you to be thinking about that for your final one. So this proves, so you would start your reasoning, and I'll leave this down here. This proves the conflict is between, and then you can give it who it was. This proves the conflict is between whichever person you choose up here, because yada yada yada. And then I want you to also explain how does this conflict impact Percy. This conflict impacts Percy because, so how is Percy involved in this? So I'll give you another sentence starter. This conflict impacts Percy because, and again, so now you have 2 sentences there for your reasoning, and that is the end. So if you need to go back, chapter 9 is right down here, just like I said. You can look back at your notes. I forgot to tell you, today was Superhero Day. I didn't have any superhero clothes, but the Chiefs were the Super Bowl winners, so I wore my Chiefs shirt. This is from the Super Bowl, too. Oh, my goodness. So it's the Super Bowl champions shirt. So I wore that for my Superhero Day. I hope you guys send in your pictures for your superhero apparel as well. All right, I will see you tomorrow for Chapter 10. Hopefully we'll get to learn more about this quest. Bye.